you like a worker outer?
I used to be. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I've done figure competitions. I used to do triathlons. Yeah. So
Wow, that's intense.
it is.
Yeah.
I don't recommend figure competitions or, it's like pageant meets bodybuilding. It's a very bizarre sport.
I have a couple of friends who've done it in the past, and I'm like, that takes like ultimate willpower, and it's just a lot. It seems like a lot, but I give you guys so much credit because it's a lot of work, I feel like.
Yeah, it was an interesting time. I just really wanted like a really, really hard challenge.
I can relate.
Yeah. So yeah, you can definitely. So I was doing triathlons and half marathons, and that was really fun. And then I was like, okay, I want a really, really tough mental challenge. So I went and I got my MBA. And then when I was done with that, I was like, I really want to try a different like physical challenge that isn't like long distance endurance sports, because I'm really bad at them. I'll finish it, but it's not pretty. And so I tried this figure competition. I thought, I wonder what, because I am physically really strong. So I wanted to see like what would happen if I just like really full on went out that way. But when it's over, it's a mind fuck, man.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Wait, so we are not going to be seeing you in like the New York City Marathon anytime soon?
No. Unless I'm like cheering somebody on, like, no. But those were fun. But yeah, they're not for me.
Actually, moved into the city. It was November 2nd, 2018. It was the day before the New York City Marathon.
Oh my gosh.
And we could see like the next day, the whole marathon happening, because we were on the Upper East Side. So we went down there. I forget the name of the diner. I forget what it is on the Upper East Side, but we were like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like the energy was just so unmatched.
Yeah.
Fun. But I don't think I'll ever be doing a figure competition, but that sounds like the ultimate like challenge for sure.
Yeah, it was crazy. But then when it's over, you're so strong and but you're so small, and like your clothes fit so awesome. But like you have no boobs. And I remember getting into my yeah, like nothing. But I remember getting into my car, and I had this tiny little Subaru at the time, and my triceps would just hit I remember that feeling like, what is happening? I'm like, oh yeah, my triceps are huge now, and it was hitting my car. It was super uncomfortable. But like when it's all over and you eat bread again and stuff, and then those super cute new jeans you just bought, and it's just, it messed with my mind more than it messed with anything else. Yeah. And so I think if you're a person who that can like trigger things for you, that is not a good sport to get involved in.
Yeah.
There's two sides of that sport, where it's like some people look at it like a sport, and some people look at it like a lifestyle. And, we all need to take time from our sport sometimes, and we need to heal and recoup and rest and recover, and like the ebbs and flows. And so
how did you like work through that? Like, was that when you were really young? Was it like, not that you're not really young, I mean like in like your teens or early 20s, like when was that, and how did you deal with like the mind fuck of it all?
It was I did it right after my 30th birthday.
Wow. So it was like recent. Like that's recent.
It was about 14 years ago.
It's like, it's not like it was, college years.
Right. Which I think probably would have been a rougher time mentally. I think by the time you hit 30, I mean, 30s are pretty cool too, but getting into my 40s is really where I'm at a place where I'm like, I really don't give a fuck what anybody thinks.
Yeah.
I now work out because I have little aches and pains, and I want to feel better, not for, vanity reasons. And so I'm grateful that I didn't do it in my 20s when I was a little less mentally tough. Yeah. But I just had to kind of get over it. But I do know that there were some women in the sport who go through deep depression when it's all over. You work so hard at this thing, and your body can't maintain that kind of a rigorous type of training. And so you are going to gain weight back, and even hydration, like,
Like cut out the liquor and
dehydrate for the
everything,
show.
right? Like just to
Yeah.
not, yeah, wow.
Yeah. So it's a mental toughness. That was more mentally tough sport than a physically tough sport, to be honest. It was, that was a very eye-opening experience, but I'm glad it didn't take me under mentally when it was over. Like, I know it can with some people. Yeah. So, but it was a fascinating time. That's for sure.
How long was that? How long did that last for? Like, was it like a year, a couple years?
No, I did it for about 6 months. So I was in, decent shape before I started. I think I probably lost like 25 pounds, but I was really strong. And it was kind of cool. Like my son, I was small, but like really
Small
strong.
but mighty.
Yeah, I was a little tugboat. So yeah, it was
just like what you call him. Oh, it comes full circle.
Yes. It's just like, you're so small, but you're so strong. But yeah, I think it's a really fun thing to challenge ourselves sometimes like that, and to do something really hard, because when we look at other people who are doing hard things and we think to ourselves, oh, that's not a big deal, or that must be interesting, or, there's so many tiny nuanced things that happen in an experience like that we will never know unless we like jump in and do it.
But I feel like that kind of translates to all the things, right? And I was actually I just did an episode, but it was all about like your comfort zone and what that means to like each person individually. But aside from the comfort zone, like awareness first, because like if we don't know that there's something outside of our comfort zone that could potentially challenge us or make us like better people or help in that like growth process, like how do we know that there's a step to take? And then when it comes to taking that step of like, now that we have this awareness that there's something out there that could potentially challenge me, help me grow, transform, all of the things, then comes the step of taking the step, which is the mind fuck in itself, right? Because by definition, our comfort zone is supposed to feel comfortable, yet everything that can help us grow is outside of that, right? It's outside of that comfort zone. But stepping outside the comfort zone, it's like this whole thing. And like I love talking about it because it's like this circle of like, what the fuck? But like step outside, and like if you want to grow, you're feeling uncomfortable in your comfort zone. So is it really comfortable inside of your comfort zone? Or like what's actually going on here, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to dive into it and you're like, oh my God, this feels hard. But like it feels hard because, and I was saying this last week, it feels hard because it is hard, right? Like anytime someone's thinking about like the flow and the alignment and all of the like airy fairy fluffy shit that people throw at you and like how things are supposed to feel, well, the reason why people are in alignment and in flow is because they took all the hard steps and moved through it first. Right.
Yeah. And staying comfortable is hard.
Right.
Sometimes it's so hard to keep the lid on our own pot, instead of just like expanding and growing.
Like, does it even exist? Like, does
right?
it even exist?
Yeah, it's all hard.
It's all hard. But
yeah.
like in a good way hard, not like I'm slamming my head against the wall and this fucking sucks hard. It's like I'm actually like moving through this resistance in a way that like I know it's going to create expansion, and then you have to do it again.
It's so true. It's so true. Yes, I know. I was having this conversation with my husband last night. And my father passed away about 4 months ago. And so I'm going through, I'm going through grief, and we're selling his house, and we got an offer yesterday on his house. And so my husband's like, congrats, that's so great. Good. And I'm like, what? No. And I'm just bawling. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I really thought that this would feel for you like one thing off the to-do list. And I'm like, I would have agreed with you a few months ago, but it's not. It feels this way. And so this is a whole new experience for me, and I'm experiencing it in a different way than I expected I would, because I've never done it before. And so I think when we talk about things that we're doing that's hard and expanding ourselves and getting out of our comfort zone, when we're watching others do it, I think we should do that with an element of curiosity and grace, because we never know how we're going to feel when we're going through it. And it's never pretty and it's never linear. And I think there's just so many different experiences that we're going to have within a thing. And it's things pop up that we aren't expecting. And that goes with all of those experiences that we're just talking about, whether it's something exciting or whether it's grief or whether it's business or whether it's relationships or parenthood, like, holy crap. Yeah.
It's
so
like messiness, right?
Mhm.
And I guess like what you said, it's like finding grace within the messiness and like finding that inspired action within the messiness. I'm holding space for you and your loss. I'm so sorry.
Oh,
to
thank
hear about
you.
your dad.
Yeah.
My dad also passed away he passed away in 2020. And it was like totally unexpected. And at the time I was also pregnant with my first Julian. And it was just like all of these things coming up. And I'm like, I've never, prepared to be a mom before. I've never buried my father before. I've never had to like clean all of my dad's stuff and like sell his house and his car and like all of these things. And all of that was so uncomfortable. But like at the end of the day, like what you said, like you're growing through it. And like however you process it is like how you're meant to process it, because we're like these humans with the full spectrum of human emotions. And whether it's like sadness, grief, fear, anger, whatever is coming up for us, like that's what we're supposed to deal with. And I think something that I realized too is like, I used to shame myself for feeling such intense emotions sometimes because I thought that I was supposed to put on the strong front or like be the Wonder Woman or whatever it is for everybody else. But what it all comes down to is like, there's no growth in that, right?
Yeah.
It's all going to bubble up and come up somewhere else. And I think the beauty in all of that is how you gain experience and you gain learnings, and then you can in turn help others on their own journey and in their own process.
Yeah. And that's our conditioning too, because when we look at like Gen Z right now, that generation of savages, I freaking love them. I just love watching them like kick
love you,
ass.
Sheridan. She's my editor. She's always like giving me like the Gen Z things to like kind of touch on. And I'm like,
they are freaking badasses. And
right?
they're shepherding in this notion of us not having to act like we have it all together and us acting like we have to shame ourselves for not, being tough and doing all the things. They're so amazing at coming in and being like, no, that's a mess. Well, we'll get through it.
They're also like
cool.
so badass at the boundary thing and like what's cool, like what's not cool, like all of the things in between. And I'm like, wow, we can really,
yes.
Like cats have really strong boundaries and like so do toddlers. Gen Z, I fucking love you guys. You're like really strong in that sense where you like tell us what's up. And like, that's like a very important, I don't know if it's a characteristic trait or just like whatever it is, just like hang on to that and like keep training the younger generations, because like what we learned from our parents is like, we carried that generational shit and like they're breaking it. So like all the power to you.
I love them.
But what that all comes down to too is like what we're going to like discuss today. And like, when we chatted a couple of weeks ago, you were like unreasonable requests, like just fucking go for it. Just to like a quick little plug for you, Stephanie, and like what you guys are doing in, for the world and like for the community and things like that. I joined Stephanie's, pitch insights of the media room.
Insights to the media room.
Insights to the media room, pitches Facebook group. So like shout out to that. We'll link it below if that's cool.
Thank you.
But I watched your pitch sucks training and I was like, dude, like never have I heard stuff from like the journalist standpoint. I've always like listened to trainings from like the PR standpoint. And this really allowed me to feel into like advocating for myself and like putting myself out there from my perspective instead of from like someone else who I'm working with perspective, who I pay, who's supposed to pitch me and like all of the things, right? So I took some of these things that you had said inside of the training where like, really just like focus on value and like what's important to you, but how it can truly help other people, because not for nothing, no one fucking cares about you, right? They
So
care about how you
true.
can help them. Like, not for
Yes.
nothing.
Yeah. Yes.
Newsflash. Sorry, guys.
Newsflash.
So I took that yesterday after I listened to it, because I'm like the queen of like, if I'm inspired, I'm going to take action. And I
Okay.
put together like a mini little pitch type of thing and like sent a couple Instagram DMs. I didn't like go all out and like do the emails and things like that. But, like, what's the worst that they could say? No. Like, but if I don't ask, they're not coming knocking on my door.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
But that comes down to like our topic for today is like unreasonable requests and like all of the things. So Stephanie, can you please introduce yourself to the listeners now that we've like buttered them up a little bit, and let us know like who you are, what you do, and like how unreasonable requests and like that topic like kind of wraps into today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Stephanie Burns. I'm the founder of the Wyld Agency. And it is a visibility agency helping personal brands and businesses get more visibility to their message, their brand. And that was born out of, I had a column on Forbes for about 9 years, and I was busting my ass trying to get eyeballs to my stuff. And so what I realized was, there's a lot of tech out there that I can use. There's a lot of ways to get views on my column. And so I decided, all right, well, if I can do this for myself, because in the last 3 years I was writing on my column, I got over 16 million page views to my column. And this is just, yeah,
fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was. And I just busted my ass doing all of this. And I thought I can templatize this down and create a service out of this. And so that's what I did. And that's what I do. Through that, I have teamed up with Dr. Cheryl Robinson and Melissa Houston, 2 other Forbes contributors, and we contribute to other places too. And we created Insights to the Media Room, which is a free Facebook group for entrepreneurs and personal, people with personal brands and businesses who want to pitch themselves to the media. And we basically give all the insights to how we want to be pitched, because we get, upwards of 100 pitches a day, and some of them are so bad, so bad. And so, yeah, I appreciate you shouting out the group, because it's a lot of fun, and we do a lot of trainings in there to teach people how to pitch their businesses. About 14-ish years ago now, about 14-ish years ago now.
Isn't it funny? Like sometimes when we say how many years ago something was, we're like, wait,
how old am I? What? Yeah. I started a business called Chic CEO, and it was a web resource for female entrepreneurs. And I launched it. I brought on a business partner, and we were, within 6 months, we were named as one of the top 10 entrepreneurial websites for women by Forbes. And that really catapulted the website into a different place. At the time, Jody and I were still working our full-time jobs, and trying to get this thing off the ground. So we quit our jobs and like went, full blast into this. And what we realized when we were trying to get this thing off the ground, because we had no money, we had no funding, was that we started to ask for crazy shit, because we had no choice. If we wanted this thing to get off the ground, we knew we had to start asking for a lot of stuff. So we were out networking probably 3, 4, 5 times a week, luncheons and happy hour. Oh my gosh, it was exhausting. So we decided that we needed to have our own networking event. We thought, what if we just bring people to us? And we started these women's networking events all over San Diego. So our very first one, since we're Chic CEO, we thought, okay, it's got to be really chic. It's got to be beautiful. So Jody calls up the W Hotel and she says, hey, naturally, downtown San Diego, naturally. And she's like, we want to hold an event in your lounge on like this random Wednesday night. And they were like, okay, well, here's our food and bev menu, and she's like, no, we will bring the women, you provide a drink and food. And they were like, oh, okay. And so we were like, what?
Wow.
That worked. And it worked. And we did that for the next 3 years, every single month for 3 years.
Oh.
And we did them all over San Diego. We expanded into LA, Portland, and New York. And we held these events. And that was our very first Unreasonable request. And we were blown away. And we decided to do an interview series and thought, well, who do we want first? And, at the time, I think, that was like 2011 or 12. Shark Tank was huge. And so, of course, we wanted to talk to Barbara Corcoran. Right. It's like I want to talk to Barbara Corcoran. Reach out to Barbara Corcoran. Can we interview you for at the time, I think we had like 5,000 or 8,000 female entrepreneurs on our network. It eventually grew up to 120,000. But at the time, it was very small. So we reached out and we're like, can I interview Barbara Corcoran? And they were like, yeah. So I interviewed Barbara. I'd never interviewed anybody in my life. Why would she let me do that? Did that. We ended up asking Fran Meyer, the co-founder of Match.com, if she would come on and be our advisor. It started, it was mind blowing. And then it turned into a way for me and Jody to make each other giggle. Like we were like, watch this. And we would start to ask for crazy shit. And you would not believe the amount of times we got a yes. I can't even think of a time we got a no, to be completely honest with you.
People are probably like, wow, they have like the BALLS to ask for this, right?
Yeah.
They have the balls to ask for this shit. Like, how can we say no to that? Like, how can you say no? Like, that's amazing, right?
Yes. And so it started out as a necessity, right? We have no money to pay for anything. So we literally have to ask, and we'll bring whatever value we can. And then it turned into a way to entertain ourselves. But then we started to realize that we started to build it into the fabric of the company. And then the interns were starting to do it. And, Jody and I were doing it. Then we had our counterpart in New York. She was using it. Like our very first event in New York was on a rooftop hotel that their grand opening was the next night in Times Square.
Oh my God. And
we didn't pay for a thing. They, we charged registration, so we made money. But what we realized through this was that we were starting to develop a framework around unreasonable requests. And the framework was this: bringing enough value to move somebody's goal forward with the things that we can provide, so that we never came into an ask by just asking. We came to an ask with providing value based on a goal that we either thought they needed or we asked. Yeah. So, for like the hotel in Times Square, did they want 100 women at their rooftop bar the night before their grand opening to know that they existed when women congregate? So here come the men. So, of course, all of a sudden they've got 200 people up there that they didn't have to market to. All of the women that came were phenomenal women. They'll come back. You give them a free drink, they're probably going to buy another one. If it's at a restaurant bar, they usually stay for dinner. Like it was a really great way for these restaurants to have their menu tested and to market to movers and shakers in their city. And it turned out to be a really great collaboration, but that's what it taught us. And so it just like makes my day to hear that you took what we said yesterday in that one little free webinar and applied it, because it works. When you can come and say, I will provide you value. Yep. And it's a partnership with you. That's the first step in making an unreasonable request. You would not believe the things that people will say yes to if you come and ask with an equal balanced value. And it's so exciting. And it just is mind blowing on what experiences you can have in your life. in business.
Like, and even just like that, like instant bout of like confidence that it gave me too. Like, just again, like I implemented what you gave in a free, like, let me just free training. Okay. So just going to reiterate that for a second and just put like pen to paper or thumbs to screen and I just did it. And like what I said to you is like one request was like a podcast that I listen to all the time. And I'm like, I'm manifesting getting featured on here, but never once did I put the work in to request the feature, right? Request the interview. So I did that with the one, and then another one where I like another person I look up to in the industry. And I was like, damn, like if these people are saying yes, like I can maybe go bigger.
That's right. And we resign ourselves to a no before we even ask because we think it's unreasonable. Right. And that is so backwards, because if you just think about it in statistically, if you don't ask, it's a 100% no. If you do ask, it's a 50% no. You just cut it in half. And I get yeses way more often than I get no's. So the fact that, I mean, if you reached out to 3 people yesterday and you got 2 yeses.
Actually, I think I sent like 9.
Oh, even that.
But the third one responded and said, please send this request to the email. And I didn't send the email yet.
It's amazing. 30%. Like, it's incredible. So, and I mean, that was yesterday. So you don't know. The rest of the week, somebody could come back. But it's amazing what can happen if you ask, if you bring enough value and you bring an ask. But
so my question to you is to like, for everybody listening, because we have a lot of purpose driven, like female entrepreneurs. I'm sure there's some men who listen to this as well. Some people who don't even have their own business, but what it all comes down to is the request could be in any area of life. So you don't have to be an entrepreneur to be like asking these unreasonable requests too. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't have a business, like, what does this do for me? But like, what would that mindset shift, like from your perspective, be to like, just fucking do it?
Great question. This is such a great question. And I'll back up for just a second and say, there's been a few people who have tried to rip off this idea and like, I don't care if they do.
Just freaking do it. Just freaking say it.
Yeah. If it, they'll rip off the idea and try to teach it as their own. Ew. And then they teach it backwards, which is like, oh, it's so frustrating for me. So what happens is, and it's the first inclination, I get it, but it's very, very wrong. The first inclination of shifting a mindset in thinking about asking for things is to think about what you want to ask for first. Like, oh, I'm going to make a list of all the things that I want and need. And that is so backwards. Okay. And I'll tell you why. Have you ever stood on a stage and had like a spotlight on you before? I don't know if you've ever performed or anything like that, but
I used to be a competitive cheerleader. So
okay.
So we're there.
Yes. So
that's the moment I'm going into right now.
Yes. So I went to college to be an opera singer. Like that was my dream. I wanted to be an opera singer. So there's many times where I've stood on a stage with this big spotlight on me. And when you stand on a stage with a huge spotlight on you, you cannot see the audience. Yeah. You can't see anything in front of you. And that's how I think of putting the focus on what I want first, is that putting that spotlight right in my eyes. I can't see anybody else. I can't think about anybody else. It's all about me. And that burns out really fast. Yeah. If you turn the light and you shine it on everybody else and think about what they want and what you can provide, you start to see all the opportunities out there. You see everybody, you see all the things. So the first step in changing a mind, or like with your mindset in unreasonable requests, is first you have to sit down and inventory your value, inventory your assets, inventory your skill set, what you can provide first before you ever go out and ask. And that will allow you to see the opportunities in front of you. Otherwise, you're just blinded by your own wants. and you're
Right. And like what
missing.
that like makes me think about too is like it creates like not almost, it creates this genuine connection because now you're not focused on me for all the selfish reasons, which I mean, sometimes that's okay. However, you know, when you turn the light outwards and you're looking at everybody else, it's coming from this place of like impact. Like, look at the impact that I can create, not like what this can do for me. It's like take, but like what can I do to give back and like in turn create like this like these relationships almost, right?
Yeah.
Like these beautiful, like nurturing, like how can I nurture these people? And then like, how can that help me to continue to grow as the person that I'm wanting to become, right?
Yes. And I call it opportunity spotting. Like if
It's the
you,
spotlight too.
right, right. And there's so many more opportunities out there that you couldn't even fathom that you would want to do until you realize or categorize all of the ways that you can help somebody. And I'll give you a really good example. When my husband and I were engaged, we decided to elope, and we ended up going to Bali for 2 months on our honeymoon.
Oh,
and yes, so while we were engaged, one day he was like, if you could do everything all over, what would you do? And I said, I wouldn't have gotten my MBA. I would have went to one of those computer coding boot camps and learned how to computer code. And he was like, what? And I said, yeah, I would. That's what I would do. And he's like, okay. So he found this computer coding camp in Bali. So I called up the program director and we were talking about this camp. And at the time I had 100,000 female entrepreneurs, 120, whatever, in my email subscriber list.
wow.
And I said, it just kind of pinged me. And I asked him, I said, how many women are in the like cohort? And he was like, none. I have none. I am so frustrated. I want more women in this group. I can't reach them. I can't get them interested. And I was like, I have a bunch of them right here. And so, yeah, maybe we can work something out. So he gave me free tuition. He gave me and my husband a private villa if I wrote about it on the Chic CEO blog. And like, we came up with this thing. That's my biggest unreasonable request I've ever made. Yeah. And it was because I knew what I had to give before. I would never in my life sit down and think to myself, maybe I can get a free trip to Bali to learn how to computer code for my honeymoon.
It's like, where would that come from?
It would never.
Right?
Just so you know, it would never.
Yeah.
And so if you are sitting here thinking about all the things that I want, you will miss 90% of the cool ass opportunities that are in front of you. So sit down. And if you have a truck that you don't use during the week, if you have some storage space, if you know how to write resumes, if you can code, if you can, whip up a website quickly, if you're an accountant, if you've got all these things, if you've, got equipment that you don't use, all the ways that you can provide value to somebody else. If you just get a mental checklist of all of those, it is so much easier for you to on the spot say to somebody, I've got this thing and you've got this thing, and I can see that we've got this thing, and I've got this goal and I can see you've got, what can we do together? Can I ask that we do something together? And 9 times out of 10, that person's going to be like, yeah. It's not about money all the time. We don't have to buy these experiences because that's not always the biggest value to people. The biggest value to people is bringing 100 women to a rooftop lounge on a Wednesday night when they might get 5 people in.
Right.
So it's really about knowing what you can give first. And that's the first part of unreasonable requests.
Yeah. And then like collaborating on that too. Like what you were saying is like, if you have this truck, if you have this space, like if you do a little research to see like what kind of networking events are in your area, maybe they have like a vendor table that you can set up and do card readings for free. Guess what? You're going to be now in front of all the people who are coming to that event or whatever it is. Right. Yeah. Like it's just a matter of like thinking a little bit outside of the box.
Yeah.
And bringing your value so that number one, you're providing all of this to somebody who would have like never even thought that they needed that, number one, or maybe they do know that they need it. And number two, now you're getting all that exposure. And like, what's better than, you know, the relationship now, like you have this forever relationship with somebody because you helped nurture each other's needs.
Goals. Yeah. And you know, it's got to be balanced. So in the beginning days of Chic CEO, we used to do newsletter swaps with people. So we would say, we'll send out a newsletter for you, you send out a newsletter for us. But we never went to somebody with a 20,000 person list and said, you can email out for us. And we have a 5,000 person list now. We would come and say, I'll email out for you 4 times if you email out for me once. And that is balanced.
Yeah.
And that's really important, is to make sure there's a balance of value. It's not just about asking for things for free. I mean, that happens sometimes too. You can probably do that. It won't feel as good, but it can be done. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So cool. I love that story about like the computer coding in Bali, because like you said, it was something that you would have loved to do. And then all of a sudden you like had this opportunity available for you, and like you gave back in a way that felt fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And I bet you probably like maybe still communicate with this person on,
and everybody in the cohort, I made lifelong friends, you know, more women got involved in the program, you know, it worked out. It was just so great. And it was just such an amazing life experience for me and my husband, and shout out to my husband for being the coolest guy ever to go to, you know, computer camp for his honeymoon.
Oh yeah. Like shout out to all the husbands out there that support their women, the unreasonable requests all the time. I'm like, like the other day, I like made a request to my husband, and he looks at me and he's like, well, I trust you and all of your crazy ideas. So if you think that this is what it is that you want to do, then you have my blessing. And I'm like, dude, like, where does that come from? Like how, like, I like sometimes think about like lucky girl syndrome, in the sense of like, I do feel so like, but I do feel lucky. Like I feel blessed and honored, like to have that support, because there's like, that's unmatched, you know?
Yes, it is. And there's so many cool, exciting experiences out there that we can take part in. And like you said, it doesn't always have to be about a business. And what feels unreasonable to you may not feel unreasonable to me. So it doesn't even have to be as big as asking for, you know, computer coding camp or, you know, event space. It could be asking for a table by the window, right? Or for an orgasm from your partner, right? Yeah. So we have to be able to ask for the things that we want. And if it means starting out small, by saying, you know, this isn't what I ordered, can you please make it right? You know, we just swallow some of these things all the time. We're like, oh, it's not right. I don't want to offend anybody. It's not. You got to get a little unreasonable. And one of the things that I always tell people too is you've got to get verbally uncomfortable. You just do. And if you can't get verbally uncomfortable by saying the things that might make you feel sometimes, when the opportunity to make an unreasonable request, like I had with, you know, this Bali thing, you won't be able to do it in the moment. Right. And so some examples of getting verbally uncomfortable, and it doesn't have to be bad, is like telling a stranger they look nice in that color. Like whenever I go to an airport, I make it a personal mission every single time I'm at an airport to find somebody that I think looks amazing and tell them. Like look at them in the eye and be like, that color looks so good on you. Because who doesn't want to hear that? But we can think those things and we never say them out loud. And so it could be something like that. Asking for a discount on something, asking for them to take your food back and make it right. Ask for the table by the window. You know, making yourself a little verbally uncomfortable makes it easier later on down the line when one of those really amazing opportunities pops up and you can think on your feet and actually ask for it. So that's your first practice.
That's huge. And I think that also goes back to like what we were talking about at the beginning with the comfort zone, right? Like, how do we ever experience any like excitement or unreasonable requests outside our comfort zone if we never actually do it, if we don't say it, if we don't ask for it? Like, of course, it's not going to feel comfortable. Like there's going to be these sirens going off. Your heart's going to start racing. Maybe you'll start sweating a little bit and like freak out, or like, oh my gosh, I'm about to go up to a stranger and like tell them they look beautiful. Like what if they just roll their eyes at me and tell me I'm a crazy person and a stalker and all the things. But like, guess what? Like if that's how you were feeling, and then like you're saying it out loud, and like that's the first step. I remember the first time I ever went live on Instagram, and like this, I swear it's going to tie in. It was like 2017 or whatever. And I literally felt like I was going to like poop and throw up at the same time. Because I was so nervous.
Yep.
But then I did it again, and then I did it again. And then it like just became a part of like the new bubble, the new comfort zone. Right. So it's just about like testing your boundaries in the sense of like, if it's making your heart race a little bit, like fucking go for it.
Yeah. 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 And, we get so worked up about rejection and people saying no and things like that. And what I like to say to that is a yes or a no to your unreasonable request is just data. It has nothing to do with your character. It has nothing to do with your heart. It has nothing to do with who you are as a person. It's just simply data. So, if you got a no, it probably means that it's not the right time for that person. There wasn't enough value in your ask to make it, make sense. And that's about it. So let yourself off the hook for, ask if somebody says no, it's literally not a reflection of the person that you are, which is how we take it sometimes. And that's why it's so scary to ask for things, but it's absolutely not. And you have my permission from here on out, forever and ever, amen, to never take a yes or a no personally, and to just go back, evaluate, did I need to add more value into that ask? Is it just not the right time? Is that not the right partner? Can I ask somebody else? Like it's just the fear of rejection can stop us as well. And it's just data.
So question for you about like the rejection thing, because I have like, as you were saying that, I'm like, ooh, I wonder if there was like a time that you had that unreasonable request and then you had experienced that rejection. Was like, what did you do to come back from that? Like, how were you like, okay, like, let me just like rewind a minute. Let me know it's not about me. Like, what were those steps like for you? Because I'm sure with all the requests, there may have been like once or twice that someone said no.
Oh, I'm sure. I don't even really remember any, to be honest with you.
Because they didn't have that.
It didn't matter.
Impact.
It's exactly right.
Like they weren't that
exactly
important.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
It's exactly right. And I've been told no plenty of times, but, it's not something I'm going to take personally. And I fill myself up with my why enough that it's just not harsh. Sometimes we are asking on behalf of others, and that makes it easier to make these big asks sometimes, like an asynchronous ask. So I used to sit on a board of a nonprofit, and I basically taught the entire board this idea. I'm like, we've got to start asking for some stuff. And even the CEO, she's like, I'm just like, Stephanie, I'm just going to go ask for it. And we got more volunteers, we got more board members, more donations, simply because everyone would start asking for more things. But if they said no, I knew that I was doing the most that I could for this organization that meant a lot to me. So if I'm doing that on behalf of my business, I know it just means my business means so much to me. So I'm doing everything I can. So I just don't ever take that personally anymore. I just don't, because I come with as much value as I can, always. And I'm not going to leave anything left on the table for that. So if it's just not the right time, it's not me personally. I know that, and I'm good in that. Yeah.
And you know what, like that actually, like, it hits home so much, because like, you're not going to take it personally, and you know that you did the best you can. You knew you did everything in your power, and like, so what? You got to know. And maybe it's a no for now, or maybe again, like it's not the right time, but like, you fucking did it. You went for it. You asked for it. You did everything within your power to make it happen. And like, it's okay, because now you look back and you're like, I fucking did my best. Like, hell yeah, like big pat on the back. Like big pat on the back. Like I didn't wait for this to happen for me. I went and knocked on the door and asked for it myself, which
just
is
like you did yesterday.
yeah,
Fuck yeah, man.
exactly.
So good.
Hell yeah.
Good. So good.
Tips for listeners, if they have like things that are on there, and I don't want to say to-do list, but maybe on the like manifestation list of like requests that they'd like to ask for, what's a tip that you would like to maybe like leave them with, like aside from going through and like giving themselves like a brag party of like all the value that they have, because that in itself is like a confidence booster in itself, because we all have so much value to give, whether you realize it or not. Okay. But like, what's that after the value? Like, what's like an action step that you think that they can take today?
Definitely to be on the lookout for any opportunities that could pop up. People in your sphere, in your circle, start to, after you inventory your assets, right? Start to be more aware of the goals of other people. Okay. And I will tell you that when I reached out to Barbara Corcoran to ask her if I could interview her, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
Like so amazing.
So I was searching for her publicist or somebody on her team that I could reach out to. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that she was about to host this, I don't know what it was, like a conference or a talk or something for female entrepreneurs on the East Coast. And so I led with that. I knew, of course, if she's got this event, she's going to want to promote it. So that's what I said. Can I interview her? We can talk about the conference. And then, we can email out about the conference before it happens. Of course. So I recognized her goal right there. Yeah. And I was able to achieve my goal by talking with this amazing person.
Right. Like,
I still can't believe it.
That's amazing.
Yeah. But it was her goal first. And so once you're aware of that and you can see that, it makes it a lot easier for you to put your ask together. So knowing what value you have, and then being able to spot other people's goals, and then using every opportunity you can to get verbally uncomfortable is always going to just stretch you and make you more confident and, spread a little joy. Do it joyfully. I mean, who doesn't want to hear they look amazing in that color, or I love those shoes, or my gosh, your just energy is so amazing right now. I mean, who doesn't want to hear that?
I mean, your energy is just so amazing right now. I freaking love it. You're like this beam of radiant light, like right at you, and I'm just like vibing off of you. I'm like totally feeling it today.
Yeah, see that? Oh shucks, So
I truly mean that.
So this is why this is my most favorite thing in the world to talk about, Unreasonable Requests. It's just so great because it's everybody's goals moving forward, everybody having these exciting experiences, and moving everything forward. Because what else are we doing on this planet? I mean, honestly, like what? What are we doing?
It's just about like pure happiness, pure joy, spreading the love, like
do the cool shit.
Doing all the cool things. Shit.
Yeah.
Like, crossing all the things off of your bucket list, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And helping others do the same. Like, exactly. And then, I mean, people maybe have some things on their bucket list that you can do too, that you didn't know you even wanted to do. Like, right. I didn't know I wanted to go to Bali.
If you don't open up that dialogue.
Right. And just do it and don't take it personally. And I mean, ask on behalf of others that, that matter to you, and watch the magic come into your life. It's just the coolest. It really is. It's my favorite.
Thank you so much. So everybody, when you're listening to this, I want you to drop in the comments below or in the review section what unreasonable requests you're committed to asking for today, what value you can provide, and maybe even just like give us 1 or 2 amazing things that you can provide value on, so that you're like opening up that awareness about yourself. So it's like a minute to like just appreciate how much value you have to give. Stephanie, where can we find you? Do you have any offers coming up? Is there anything that you want to like tell our listeners about?
Yeah, definitely to join the Insights to the Media Room Facebook group, where, we talk about pitching the media and how to pitch yourself. And again, it goes like all of that stuff. It ties in unreasonable requests. Yeah. It's good for pitching podcasts, for pitching yourself to the media. I've been and Cosmo and New York Times and Wall Street Journal and Fast Company, Inc., Forbes, Entrepreneur, all these places. I've never hired a publicist. I've never hired a PR agency, done it all myself. And absolutely 1000%, you guys can do it too. Everybody can do that for themselves. And so as the journalists, we're just giving you our tips that we see and how you can better pitch yourself. And it's a good lesson to learn, not just for media, but for pitching yourself for anything. So join the group and come and play with us. And that's where you can find me. And if you have made an unreasonable request, I 1000% want to hear about it. And you can email me at s@stephanie-burns.com. Please tell me about your unreasonable requests. I want to write a book about this someday, but I don't talk to enough people that make them, that I want to catalog people's unreasonable requests. So if you have one, if you made one, please email it to me because I want to know.
We should do like a talk show of like all the people of all the things that they've ever requested.
Yes.
Document everything.
Yes.
And like put it in your book.
Yes. So if you've done it, I want to hear about it. I do. Yes. I do. Yes.
Totally. So we're going to put your email address below. I'll put the link to your Facebook group below so that way you guys can easily access it. Thank you so much, Stephanie. This was such a fun conversation.
Yes.
I really enjoyed this. And all of my listeners out there, go ahead and give Stephanie a follow. And remember, you are you, and that is your absolute superpower. I love you all, and I will talk to you all next week. Bye.